of this is that, sorry, got it. My choice of this capital of Tehillim is that the reason that I got involved in this share at all and give it every week is Le'ilu Nishmas, my mother. This was her share, and I feel like this is one of my strong, continuous connections with her. Every time I give the share, in her zchus. And so every year, traditionally since we started, we've done her kapitel around her birthday. And this last week was her birthday, and so we moved up to Perek and kapitel Pei Aleph, or 81. So for those of you who have very good memories, you'll remember a lot of it. Please God, there's quite a bit of new information here, and for those who don't remember, it's new. It will be completely new. So if you have a look at chapter 81, you will see that it's one that you recognize if you do daven often. It is the Shir Shel Yom, the song of the day for Thursdays as well. So that's why it's quite a familiar capital of Tehillim.
Energy crisis is expected to dominate the state of the nation.
Okay, so just for all those people who just joined us, we are doing capital Pei Aleph, or 81. As I said, we have done it before, but for good reason we are doing it again. So this capital of Tehillim, as I said to you, it is the Shir Shel Yom of Thursday, and together with Shir Shel Yom of Thursday, it's more well known apparently as the capital of Tehillim, which was said in the Beis Hamikdash on Rosh Hashanah. Most specifically on Rosh Hashanah, that's what it was written for. We are having a very big thunderstorm now, if you heard that bang. So that's the other well-known thing about this chapter of Tehillim. Also, historically, if we want to look at the story of this chapter of Tehillim, it's the story of Yosef being freed from prison, which also traditionally was on Rosh Hashanah, night. So those are that's a little bit of the background of this capital, and we'll see these themes playing out as we go through the perek itself. So the very first line of this capital begins, Lamnatseach al Hagitis la'asaf. So as you remember, that the first line of every capital of Tehillim just about gives instructions to the conductor in the Beis Hamikdash. These are the ones that were sung by the Levim in the Beis Hamikdash. And the first line of each chapter of Tehillim, David HaMelech gives instruction to the menatzer, to the conductor, and he tells what notes they should sing and what music they should play on. And also generally in the very first line, it tells us who was the composer of this capital of Tehillim. So at that level, this first line, Lamnatzer, to the conductor, al hagitis, on a musical instrument, which came from a city in Eretz Yisrael called Gat, and what they were most well known for was making very high quality musical instruments. And so he says, when you sing this song in the Beis Hamikdash, use musical instruments from the Gat, from this place of musical instruments, and la'asaf, that this chapter of Tehillim is being attributed to Asaf. Asaf is the head musician, one of the Levim. So that's at a very simple level. Taking this one step further, a little bit slightly deeper. So we've come across this idea before that whenever it says Lamnatseach, it doesn't mean just to the conductor, but it contains the word nitzachon, or victory. And this whole capital of Tehillim is telling us how to survive the Golus, how to survive exile, and how to get Mashiach, how to bring about Mashiach. So Lamnatseach, to those people who want nitzachon, who want to have victory over the Golus, Al-Hagitis. So what is the Gittis? So a simple translation of the word Gittis is a wine press. A gut is a wine press. So had we been learning Tehillim in order, in the last chapter, in chapter 80, it spoke about the Jewish people as being a vine. Asher Kana, a vine, a grapevine, Geffen, Zeus, this grapevine, and kept on referring to us Jewish people as the grapevine or the vine. In this introduction to Perek Pei Aleph to 81, it says, you know what's even better than grapes is wine. And how do we get wine? By pressing those grapes. So in chapter 80, we were this vine, so to speak. Now do you want to have nitzachon? Do you want to have real victory? That is, you've got to make wine. Out of the grapes that you have, you've got to make wine. And that's al-hagitis, lamnatseach al-hagitis, to be victorious over the wine press, over the getting better, over the taking what we have that's good, the vine, and turning it into wine. Because what will that do? La'asaf, it will help us. The word asaf means to gather. It will help us to have the ingathering of exiles, which obviously is talking about Mashiach. So that's at a slightly deeper level. Other commentaries explain very similarly this idea of al-hagitis on the wine press as talking about the challenges, the troubles that we face in our galus. Galus life is not always simple. And a lot of the time we feel that we're being pressed. Al-hagitis, we're on the wine press. How do we have nitzachon? How do we have nitzachon over the galus? And how do we get to come to this place, Asaf, to this place of Mashiach? Oh, says David HaMelech, read the next part of this kapitel of Tehillim. That's what you're going to find out. I'm going to give you instructions for how to achieve that, how to be victorious over the galus. And so he begins with his first instruction to us in Pasuk Beis, and he says, Harninu lelekim uzeinu hariu lelekei Yaakov. Sing out, take a song, sing out loud to the God of Yaakov. And we look at the next line as well. So uzimra usnutov kino naim im novel. So sing your song, play it on drums, on the harp, the beautiful harp, and the novel, which is by most opinions, a lyre, L-Y-R-E, whatever kind of instrument that means. So clearly, David HaMelech is telling us that the very first thing that we have to do if we want to survive the galus is to sing. And we come across this, if you recall, we come across this in over and over and over again in Tehillim, that David HaMelech says that what helps us get through any kinds of challenges ever, and that's whether we want to make ourselves happy or we want to make ourselves serious or however it is, he says sing. So at simple level, pshat level, singing means singing. That actually means opening up our mouths and belting out whatever it is that we feeling. So that when we're feeling happy, we sing a happy song. When we're feeling sad, we sing a sad song. And the commentaries go even so far as to say, use song as a means to feel what you need to be feeling. So if you're not feeling happy, sing a happy song. If you need to be serious, sing a serious song. And this is actually, I always say that when we first came to Oxford Shul, Yudi Cohen was our chazan over here. And besides his beautiful voice, one of his strongest abilities is that he was always able to move you to the mood that he wanted through his song. So he understood the words of the tefillah very, very well. And then he brought you to feel those words of the tefillah through song, okay, through singing. And if we stop for a minute and think about it, we do that all the time with the different songs that we have for different parts of our davening, or different parts of our lives, or the things that catch us and we land up singing the whole day, all those kind of things, move us into different moods. And that's simply what David HaMelech is saying here in this first line. You want to survive the galus. Sing, go out and just sing and move yourself into the space that you need to be by singing. And I always say that this is whether or not you sing nicely. When I was growing up, one of my good friends always told me that I'm a decomposer. I can't carry a tune, but I love to sing. Okay, and I love to sing sometimes happy songs, sometimes not happy songs, but definitely we should always be singing. And David HaMelech says this is the way that we will survive. Singing also represents an attitude, of how we are feeling at that moment. Most famously, and I have shared this with you before, when Yaakov sends his sons to Egypt to go and get food, and they're all petrified because the man who they don't know is Yosef has been quite mean to them. Yaakov is hoping that all his children will come home in one piece. He's really nervous, and he gives his sons a whole lots of instructions about how to behave in Egypt. And he also tells them to take lots of gifts to this man, to Yosef, that he doesn't know is Yosef. And he tells him to take nuts, and he tells him to take spices. And in his instruction, he says, Kachu mizimra sa'aretz, which means take from the best of the land. But it's a strange wording that the Torah uses, that Yaakov says, Kachu mizimra sa'aretz, because Zimra actually means a song. And what Yaakov was saying to them, go with the songs of the land. In other words, go with the right attitude. Stand up tall and sing and feel successful. And the Rebbe actually speaks about this in a sikha where he explains, he says, isn't it a strange thing that when soldiers go out to war, they sing their victory songs, they sing their war cries on their way to war. And it's not, they don't wait to see what happens at the war and then decide what they're going to sing, or if they're going to sing. They walk out into war singing their songs, right? And this is we call these war cries, because that singing of the song represents their attitude of how they believe they're going to do. And when they go out there singing their songs, shouting who they are and that they're going to be the winning side, they actually they cause that to happen. And the Rebbe speaks about the idea that we fight wars every single day. We have a little Yetzer Hara inside us, hopefully little, and we fight the Yetzer Hara all day, and we fight our physicality, wanting us, our part of us wants to be more spiritual, other part of us wants to be more physical, and it's another war we're fighting. And we're fighting all different things that we have to do every day. And David HaMelech gives us the advice. He says, Harninu le'Elokim u'zeinu. Go out singing, okay, and don't just sing, but sing loud songs, and don't just make it loud songs, but sing with instruments, play with music. In other words, go with the right attitude. If you decide that you're going to win, you can move yourself into that space and you can be successful. So that's his instruction number one for surviving the Golus. I like Rav Shamshon Hirsch, who writes that our songs must be contagious. And here is David HaMelech is talking about happy songs. It says that when we sing a happy song, when you sing and you can do it well enough that it's contagious, not only you win your war, but you help somebody else to win their war. And so it says, one of the ways that we survive the Golus, one of the ways that we get through difficult times is by singing contagious songs, so that the people around us are also in a happier space, in a good mood. He continues with the next rule for us. He says, Tiku b'chodesh shofar, blow the shofar, the new month, or Rosh Hashanah b'Kesel Yom Chagenu, on the day that was chosen as our holiday. Ki chok Yisrael hu mishpat Elokei Yaakov, because this is a law for the Yidden. It's a mishpat, a logical law for the God of Yaakov. So again, at a very simple pshat understanding of these psukim, it's the mitzvah that we have of blowing shofar, and every year on Rosh Hashanah we obligated tiku b'chodesh shofar to blow the shofar. It's a mitzvah, and it's a mitzvah on that designated day, and that Rosh Hashanah to blow the shofar. And the commentaries say that look at the word b'chodesh and read it also as b'chadash, as new, and says that even even mitzvahs that we have that come year after year after year after year, or month after month, or day after day, and they're mitzvahs that seem to be exactly the same always. How should we do those mitzvahs? B'chadash, as if they were new. So this is the next, that's the instruction that David HaMelech is giving us while we're going through Golus. All mitzvahs, even ones that just seem so repetitive, Tiku b'chadash. We should read that. We should do them as if they are brand new. So that's at that level. And so it's not only talking about the shofar, but of all mitzvahs, that we should do them with enthusiasm as if they were new. And he explains why. He says in Pasuk Hey, which we just read, Ki chok Yisrael hu mishpat Elokei Yaakov, because that which is a decree for Israel is a mishpat. It's a law, a logical law for the God of Yaakov. In other words, even mitzvahs that we don't understand, it's a chok, because if you know that there are mitzvahs that are called chok, mitzvahs that we don't understand, we just do them. And then there are mitzvahs that are mishpat, that we do understand. So for example, we don't know why we keep kosher. There's no reason given in the Torah, this is why you must keep kosher. It's a chok. Honoring one's parents, this is a mishpat. It makes sense that you go to honor, that you have to honor parents. So says David HaMelech, Ki chok Yisrael, all those laws which are not understandable to us, mishpat Elokei Yaakov. God has a reason. There's a logical understanding and reason of why it happens. So even when a mitzvah doesn't make sense to you, we still do it because we know that there is a reason. And the commentaries go one step further and says, this is probably the biggest way that we survive Golus, this line. And what is that? Our most difficult time in Golus, in exile, is when we don't understand. When things are going so nicely and we understand everything, and we like what Hashem is doing, and it all makes sense to us, and it's all pretty, and we're very happy with it. It's nice, it's okay, it's comfortable Golus. When does Golus become difficult? When we don't understand what Hashem is doing. We don't understand why he's doing, we don't understand what he's doing, and most specifically when we don't like what he's doing. That's the most difficult time of Golus. It's the most difficult time of surviving it. It's the most difficult time of retaining our emunah, our trust, our belief in Hashem. And says David HaMelech, he says, Ki chok Yisrael, that which is a chok, which is things that we don't understand about the way Hashem is running his world, mishpat Elokei Yaakov. We've got to believe that there's mishpat, that there is logic, that there's reason, and that Hashem does what he does with a plan. And if we can do that, if we can bring ourselves into that space, it's much easier time of surviving, of going through Golus. And then he continues and he says, Eidut b'Hosef Shama b'Tzeisol Eretz Mitzrayim. So Eidus is another kind of mitzvah, a law, which we'll discuss in a minute. So this Eidus, this testimony, this law that comes about as a testimony, comes through Yosef when he was going out over the land of Egypt. Sfas lo yadati yeshma, and there was a language which he didn't know. So now we come to, again, if we're looking at this perek in a pshat, in a simple surfacey level, it's talking about Yosef. As we said right at the beginning, Yosef traditionally came out of prison after 10 or 12 years of being in prison. He came out on Rosh Hashanah night when the butler finally told Paro, who was struggling with his dreams, that there is this dream interpreter. And so that night he came out of prison. Now the interesting thing is when the butler called for Yosef, he wanted to make sure that Yosef couldn't get any position of power in Egypt. One of the things written in the constitution of Egypt, so you see, Egypt even had a constitution, Israel doesn't, still not. But one of the things written in the constitution of Egypt was that a person who took up any position of power, like a prime minister or something like that, had to know the 70 languages. And Joseph didn't. Joseph did not know all the various languages. And so the Medrash tells us that in that night, in that short amount of time that Paro called for him, and he was brought and changed and got his hair cut and came and stood before Paro, the Malach Michael came and taught him all 70 languages. And the hint to that Medrash comes from this pasuk that begins with an ayin and ends with an ayin. Ayin is the numerical value of 70, and says, during that night, Eidut, I have testimony, I have promised to you the Yosef, with Yosef, that he learned somewhere he went out over the land of Egypt. Sfat lo yadati, he didn't know the languages, and Eshma Hashem taught them all to him. So what you should be asking me is, it doesn't say Yosef, it says be Yosef. Okay, so what is this extra hey that's written over here? If it's talking about Yosef, why does it suddenly have this extra hey in his name? And the commentary is interesting in what it's telling us. It says the extra hey in his name is to alert us to his absolute greatness. So we know that Avraham Avinu, when Hashem wanted to show the whole world and everyone Avraham's greatness, his strength of character, who he was, what he was going to achieve, he took the simple name Avram and he added a hey, which was the hey from Hashem, so to speak, and he added it and made Avram into Avraham. And over here, David HaMelech shows us that Yosef had this incredible strength as well. He was Yosef, and at this moment, when he came out and was about to be the prime minister of Egypt and be the Yosef HaTzadik that he turned out that he was, David HaMelech adds the hey in over here to tell us about his greatness. And the commentaries speak about what was his greatness. The first and simplest of all his greatness was that he was able to learn 70 languages in one night. So I don't know about you, but I can learn a language in all my years. So, and Yosef learned 70 languages in one night. This was because of the hey, the added dimension of godliness in him, that he got this power, that he got this ability to learn those 70 languages. But it says, the Medrash says, what was even greater about Yosef at this time, why he got this hey, is because of the huge Kiddush Hashem he made by not succumbing to Mrs. Potiphar. So you know, Mrs. Potiphar had her eye on Yosef. She wanted him, and she let him know in every different way. She bribed him, she begged him, she pleaded with him, she threatened him, and she all but grabbed him and tried to get him. And you know, we all think it's just the story we hear that he managed, that he ran away. But if we think about it, even from the psychological point of view, Yosef was 18 years old, and here this beautiful woman was begging him, pleading with him, threatening him to be with her. He should have just succumbed immediately. And the Medrash tells us that he was so close to it. It was so difficult for him to resist her that he actually went and bought himself a necklace with a very sharp edge, which he put around his neck, so that if he were to lie down, move into look down at her, he would cut his jugular, and that would be the end of him. So he went to the absolute extreme to make sure that he did not land up sinning with Mrs. Potiphar, even though he could have explained it away in a second, and it was not my fault. And for that, he got the hey, he got the extra letter in his name over here, that David HaMelech puts it here, that we should forever ask, what did he do to deserve the extra hey? And we should be able to tell the story. Just as a by the way, which doesn't really fit in with this capital of Tehillim, but it says also that when the Yidden was standing by the sea with Egyptians chasing them, and they saw the coffin of Yosef, the sea split. And this was also as a result of Yosef not being with Mrs. Potiphar. And so this is at that level, and this next level, as we've been looking at, is what is that for us in Galus? That even when we are in Galus and we are faced with things which are difficult for us to resist. When we're faced with things which we could blame on anybody else and explain away, our strength is when we are able to stand tall and say, no, okay, I will not listen to my Yetzer Hara. I will resist. I will do what Hashem wants. Interestingly, when the different Mefarshim explain what was the greatness of Yosef, so one of the things that they explain is on the word Sfas Lo Yadati, didn't know this language. And you know well the Medrash that says that one of the reasons that the Jewish people were redeemed from Egypt was because they did not change their language. And changing one's language doesn't mean that we shouldn't walk around speaking English because, you know, we live in South Africa. So there are some people who are very strong about keeping Jewish languages, talking to their children in Yiddish or talking to their or whatever to keep us separate people. But practically we speak English because we live in a place where the people around us speak English. But what does it mean then not to change our language? Is not to change the way we speak, to be careful about the kind of words that come out of our mouths, to be careful of the kind of jokes that we tell, to be careful of the lingo that we use. Sfas Lo Yadati, we mustn't know the language of just the ordinary place, the ordinary and the lower places. Hashem promised, and he said, Pasuk Zayin, I, Hashem, removed the weight from Yosef's shoulders and took off this big burden that he had. And then this is a promise that Hashem makes to us, that when we deserve it, He will take the burden off our shoulders. He says, "But Sarah karasa v'achaltzeka encha b'seisei ra'am evchancha al mei meriva selo." You called out to me, and I rescued you. I answered you, even though you called from quiet places. I answered you publicly. I tested you with the bitter waters, Selah. Forever. So Hashem is telling us that when we are in trouble and we called out to Him previously and still now, if we call out to Him, a promise from Hashem, I will answer you. And even if you call out to me softly, I will answer you. But Hashem says, there are times where I will test you. And we know that. We know from God that there are times that Hashem will test us. An interesting test that he alludes to over here, he says, I tested you with the Mei Meriva. So the Mei Meriva are the bitter waters, when the Yidden started crying for water, asking for water, and they got water, and it was Mei Meriva, it was bitter waters, and the Jews flopped out completely. This test, they did not pass this test at all. They started crying and performing, and we're going to die because we can't drink this water. And why does Hashem choose this test to say, I tested you? Because even when we fail in a test, even when we don't do as well as we should do when Hashem tests us, Hashem promises us that He will look after us. And even though the Jews flopped out with the test of Mei Meriva, Hashem looked after us. He took us out of the desert. Before that, He even gave them sweet water as well. David HaMelech says that Hashem is telling us, Shema Ami v'ayda bach Yisrael im tishmali. Listen, people, listen to what I tell you to do. If only you would listen to me. And if only we would listen to Hashem, lo yevach el zar, there wouldn't be any strange gods, but lo yishtachaveh el nechar, and we shouldn't bow down to a foreign god. So here, simple level again, Hashem saying, listen to me, I'll tell you what to do, keep my Torah, keep my mitzvahs, do what I'm telling you to do, and don't get involved with foreign gods, okay, with other gods. So the commentaries tell us that what does it mean if only you would listen to me? Im tishmali lo yevacha el zar, you wouldn't have a strange god. And the commentaries explain to us that this is actually talking about when Hashem gave us the Torah. So if you remember the 10 Commandments, all the Jews were standing around Har Sinai, and the very first two of the 2 commandments, Hashem started speaking Himself. And this was just too much for the Jews. Okay, they went into full-on panic, started fainting, dying, shouting for Moshe, help, please, we can't listen to Hashem. If we listen to Hashem telling us the Torah, that will be the end of us. We can't do this. And so Hashem stopped, and Moshe Rabbeinu carried on. That's the story in its simplest form. What would have happened to us if we had heard all the commandments directly from Hashem's mouth? So simply, the commentaries tell us that we would have suddenly realized the unbelievable awesomeness of Hashem. We would have realized how great Hashem is, and we would no longer have any free choice. We wouldn't have been able to start saying for ourselves, yes, I do want that, I don't want that, I like this, I don't like that. We would have had no free choice whatsoever, because when you realize that Hashem is as great as he is, then that takes away your free choice. If we had no free choice and we could only do good, we would be perfect, only good people, then we would have no Yetzer Hara anymore. And so this is what Hashem is saying. He says, Shema mi, listen to me. Okay, if you would if you would only listen to me, you would never have a Yetzer Hara anymore. Okay, that would have been the end of our Yetzer Haras. And you wouldn't bow down to a foreign god. Now the question is, would that be an ideal world? Okay, would it be ideal not to have a Yetzer Hara and not to have any tests, any challenges, and so actually the commentaries tell us that no, that would not be an ideal situation, because even though over here we're referring to the Yetzer Hara as a foreign god, there's certain things about the Yetzer Hara that we still need. We need little bits of Yetzer Hara in order to survive the Galus and in order to actually get Mashiach. So say, for example, and this is one that Rashi brings, he says that anger comes from the Yetzer Hara, right? But getting cross is because the Yetzer Hara makes us lose control and we get cross. He says, but would it be good if we never ever got angry? He says, and there must be times where people get angry. There is some good in the anger that it originates possibly in the Yetzer Hara, but we also need to have some of it. So while we're in Galus, it would not be absolutely ideal for us not to have Yetzer Hara at all. But Hashem says, no. Anochi Hashem leikecha, I'm Hashem your God, ha'amalcha me'eretz Mitzrayim, who brought you up from Egypt. Harchev picha v'amalehu. Open up your mouths and I will fill it. And so Hashem says, whatever you're going through, again, keep on remembering that I'm the God who brought you up from Egypt. So that at a very practical level, I'm the God who brought you up from Egypt. At a slightly deeper level, we also know that we all have our own Egypts. We all have the things that hold us down and imprison us and keep us from growing spiritually. And remember, I'm Hashem, okay? And I'm Hashem who wants to help you up. And especially David HaMelech uses the word Ha'ma'alcha me'eretz Mitzrayim. I brought you up from the land of Egypt. So we're not speaking just about a geographical destination, going up from to Israel from Egypt, but going up spiritually. Hashem is the one who helps us, and even now in Galus we can get out of our own personal Egypts, and we can go up, we can go high, because Hashem has our back. And how do we know that Hashem has our back? Because he says, "Harchev picha v'amalehu." Just open up your mouth and I will fill it. Okay. And the picture that the commentaries paint for us is that of a baby bird. A baby bird doesn't wait to see if its mother is going to give it a worm. The baby bird sits in its nest with its mouth open and chirping, and has absolute faith that its mother's going to come back with a worm for it. And when it's finished the one worm, it opens up its mouth again for the next one and the next one. And this should be our relationship with Hashem. Hashem says, "Open up your mouth wide, and I will fill it." However, sad pasuk says, "V'lo shama ami l'kaili," my people didn't listen to my voice. V'Yisrael lo avali, and the Yidden did not listen to me. So this is what happens. And so I sent them after their own hearts. And I let them go with their own ideas. And then that obviously is how we landed up in Golus. So says Hashem, Lu ami shamani, please, if only my people, you would listen to me. Yisrael b'drachaya halechu, and you didn't go in my way. You know what I would do for you, says Hashem? Kimat oiveim achniav al tzareim asher yodi. I would get rid of your enemies, and like very quickly, I would destroy those who hate you. Masaneh Hashem yichachashuloi, those who hate Hashem and deny Him, v'itam le'olam, and I would be with you Jews forever. And he finishes off with a happy pasuk, with this promise that if we would turn to Hashem, if we would listen to Hashem, I would feed him from the fat of the wheat. This is already hinting at the man that we got in the desert. So in case you don't know if it's true, would Hashem really feed us with the fat of the wheat? He has done that already. And from a rock, I would give you honey. I would give you something that is sweet. So this is in simple understanding. It's referring to the water which Hashem gave us, the sweet water that Hashem gave us in the desert. It's actually from these words, that from a rock of honey, I will satisfy you. This is where the main source of where we have to eat an apple dipped in honey, to have something dipped in honey on Rosh Hashanah night, where we ask Hashem, this Rosh Hashanah, that this is the capital that we read in the Beit HaMikdash on Rosh Hashanah. We also want Hashem, the promise that you made at the end of this chapter, which is Mitzur Devash Asbieko, that you will feed us the sweetness of honey, even from a rock, even from something that's difficult. And that's where we will stop today. Yeah.
Thank you, Rivki. That was beautiful.
Thank you. Nice to
Thank
see you
you.
again.
Thanks, Rivki.
Thank you.
Take care
And you. Nice
and
to
have
see
a
you
lovely
again.
Shabbos.
Thank you, and you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So nice to have the share again.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very
Thank
nice.
you. Thank you very much.
No, Shem, I should have said to you, can you go? Because you just said to sit here. Couldn't watch
Okay,
TV.
I'm going to stop the recording. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, Rivki. Good Shabbos.
Bye. Good Shabbos.